Who are the best waiver wire pickups for Week 17 in fantasy football across positions? And what do we think of that final game of Week 16 between the Chargers and Colts? The time to break it down right here and right now as we begin another edition of Pickup Tuesday on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. We're here to another Pickup Tuesday. Yeah, we're going to still look at players that can help our fantasy football teams, whether you're playing seasonal leagues through Week 17 or Week 18. We've got you covered here the next couple of weeks here. So still going to do our normal analysis. Of course, so you might pivot a little bit to DFS throughout some seasonal league playoffs, but it is championship week. You can still be improving your team. And if you go into next week, there's also some guys that are bound to be able to help your team that you weren't thinking about on the roster. And you should also have your bases covered if there's a late injury in the week or something like that that pops up. But we never know what's going to happen. So we want to be prepared to succeed here in the fantasy football playoffs. And if we're playing in any other format as well, we can look at these players as having a good matchups here going forward. So we will do that here for the final 2 weeks. We'll get into Week 17 waiver wire advice for you in a moment. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We are free and available to you on all platforms. All right, let's dive right in. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. Yeah, the quarterbacks have some real appeal this week, so we're going to get into that. It's been tough, right? We lost Jalen Hurts. Some of the quarterback production has been down across the league here. It's really an all-season trend. Even if you have the top guys, you never know when they're going to be pulling off. We saw that Justin Herbert, he's had several great matchups, but the numbers haven't been there. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, it's not been pretty with their numbers, but they're still getting it done. So beyond those guys, we're still looking for some answers, and we have a few more this week. Mike White is going to return to start. In fact, they're demoting Zach Wilson back off in active duty there. So really, it's over for Zach Wilson, it looks like, in New York. I think they're just tired of him. His play hasn't improved. They've given him every opportunity here. So Mike White, he's a free agent next year. They're going to have to figure out what they do here. But he's a young quarterback. He is just a recent draft pick by the Cowboys. So the Jets are going to look at him as much as possible. It is a matchup here that is favorable. The Seahawks are pretty tough on the outside with their corners, Tariq Woolen and Mike Jackson. They have a pretty good pass rush, but the Jets can work the middle of the field. They got Elijah Moore, and they got Tyler Conklin. So some weapons there that can really help Mike White exploit that. They do move Garrett Wilson around as well, so that's going to help. So Mike White returns to a pretty good spot here in Seattle to put up some numbers. Could be a sneaky high-scoring game. I know the Jets' defense is pretty darn good, but we know that they can be vulnerable against the run. We saw it against Travis Etienne and the Jaguars last week. So Kenneth Walker, that Seahawks running game should be up here. That should create some resistance here for Mike White playing against Geno Smith. So really like Mike White as a pickup if you're looking at it in a 1 week perspective to play a quarterback. Gardner Minshew, we recommended last week, probably last call there now. I mean, he put up the numbers, more than 350 yards passing. He had a couple of TDs through the air, both to Devonta Smith, one on the ground. So very, very Jalen Hurts-like performance. We could have done without the 2 interceptions if you get minus points for those. But Minshew looked pretty good, in control of that offense. He also helped Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown have some nice games. So when you look at that, Minshew definitely, I mean, sometimes it's the level of offense. If you've got a great offensive line, I know they have Lane Johnson hurting here. So that is a big loss at right tackle. But otherwise, still a very solid front here for the Eagles. Minshew can make plays. And he's just too good, too attached to a great offense to say you're not going to look at him. But Minshew did prove himself. And they get the Saints this week. They still need to win a game. We'll see if Minshew plays. I know Jalen Hurts has been lobbying to play. But if I'm the Eagles, really defense was the problem last week against the Cowboys. We shore that up a little bit against the Saints. You should win this game, get in position to get that top seed. And then you'll see Minshew probably starting in Week 17 as well against the Giants. Brock Purdy is another guy with some great matchups here to close the season. He's had multiple TD passes in every appearance he's made over the past 4 weeks, including 3 starts. So it hasn't been big yardage-wise because, again, the 49ers haven't been challenged much. They keep winning games. They won 8 consecutive games here. So really it's about their defense, their running game, a few timely big pass plays. We saw it in George Kittle last week, both for scores here. So Brock Purdy should keep it up. He gets the Raiders on the road. That's a very comfortable environment there in Allegiant Stadium. We're going to have a lot of 49ers fans, I'm sure, making the trip there. So it's going to feel at home here for Brock Purdy. The Raiders' defense also stinks. So that should be great for Purdy to put up numbers, and maybe you'll get a little resistance from the Raiders' offense. I don't expect a lot, but enough where Purdy can put up the numbers. So I can't expect a big game. So I don't like Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs to do much here to counter the 49ers, but you're going to get the 215 too. You can probably get that. That puts you on the borderline QB1. That's how this season has been going. And finally ends up with the Cardinals. So good spot there. Remember what Jimmy Garoppolo did to the Cardinals. He had 4 TDs in that matchup in the earlier meeting. So keep that in mind here. He can get it done here in the final 2 weeks. Mac Jones is someone that is a little bit volatile. He let us down a couple weeks ago against the Raiders. He was actually pretty decent with a couple touchdown passes last week against the Bengals. So it's a decent matchup. The Dolphins' pass defense is not playing all that well. They go to New England, so it's a home game. That's helpful for Jones here, where the production was against the Bengals. And then you look, finally, you get the tough matchup against the Bills, but maybe some garbage time for Mac Jones. But maybe the Kendrick Bourne spark will help a little bit. Maybe we'll get a little bit healthier receiver. The tight end injury is a little bit concerned with Hunter Henry and the knee and the day-to-day. But we look at the situation with Jones, I think he's going to have a pretty good game, and there could be some high volume against that Dolphins offense on the other side. Now, speaking of the Dolphins, we'll see what they do with Tua Tagovailoa. I would be very careful about the Dolphins. I mean, this is potentially a career concerning thing developing here with the concussion protocol for Tua Tagovailoa. There's a lot of controversy over it. We know there already was that when he came back in that game against the Bills early in the season. Then they put him in the Bengals game, then he couldn't finish, and then he had Bridgewater come in that one, and it was just a mess there, and Bridgewater himself got hurt. So the Dolphins need to be very careful here. So Bridgewater could definitely get the start in New England when they need to win a game. They're 8-7. They're sliding in this playoff picture pretty fast here. But looking at Bridgewater, definitely has weapons. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they haven't slowed down much. Tua had all those interceptions last week, or otherwise it would have been a good game with the touchdowns and 300 yards. So look at that. Bridgewater definitely has some appeal this week. And finally, oh man, this is a tough recommendation, but I'm going to have to do it. Russell Wilson. Now, I feel like Nathaniel Hackett being fired might actually help Wilson. It was an awful performance last week, but he did light up the Chiefs in their first matchup, a lot because of Jerry Jeudy winning his matchup, but that's going to come to play again with Cortland Sutton as well, healthy for this game at wide receiver. So looking at Russell Wilson, definitely it's a little bit dangerous. It's a little bit risky. It's an aggressive move here. If you're going for that high ceiling, however, this is how you would attack it. Again, he's a boomer bust quality guy at this point at quarterback. There are some other quarterbacks that we mentioned before, including White, Minshew, and Purdy, that have a much higher floor, which we're going to get. So Wilson, a little bit volatile, a little risky. We don't know what you're going to get without Hackett. But again, the matchup says you can consider him, and they do close against the Chargers at home, who could be resting players. Keep that in mind here. Something that might happen now. The Chargers have locked up a playoff berth. So speaking of the Chargers, an interesting performance for sure. Austin Eckler has just been a league winner again this year, just his touchdowns alone, but getting involved in the pass game, passing the century mark in reception. So incredible season here for him. Keenan Allen has been a PPR monster as well since coming back from his hamstring injury with Justin Herbert. Mike Williams has been pretty solid. The one thing that's been missing here is the touchdowns from Herbert. I mean, that's a little bit frustrating, but definitely the Chargers are coming together as a complete team. They're not chargering, as a lot of people say. They're controlling some games and winning them in a nice fashion here with Brandon Staley. And you can't argue with results. They're a playoff team despite all their injuries. So congratulations to them. The Colts, however, Nick Foles, oh boy, he really let us down because we thought, okay, here's an aggressive downfield thrower. He's going to help. It did not. Any of the receivers there. And again, limited the returns from the running game. So bad game by Nick Foles, is turning the ball over quite a bit, getting under pressure and sacked often. So really ugly. It's really hard to trust anything in the Colts offense as they go play the Giants this week. All right, there you have it. There's a look at your quarterbacks that you want to target on the waiver wire, plus a few takeaways from the Chargers-Colts game. We'll get into our running backs and streaming defenses in the next segment. Then we'll close looking at wide receivers and tight ends that can help your fantasy football teams here. Week 17 and Week 18, that's all we have of the 2022 NFL regular season. Hard to believe, but we're here. We're going to spill from December into January. Well, if you're missing the excitement of the NFL, there's a one way to have that while working on your phone, because I'm really geeked out by our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Well, your dream can come true. And this game, Ultimate Football GM, is definitely for you. You can manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, which can be key for real NFL teams here in January and February, trading the players that you need to, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, and all the ups and downs of a regular season. All this in a challenging, realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. You can't beat that for an excellent, addictive game. I enjoy it so much. It's having that opportunity to have the power of a team in the palm of your hands. It's a lot of fun, easy to play, and you just can get better as you go along. And really, you can get involved with the league, create it for your friends. We have it with our Locked On NFL hosts here. You can have a little fun with that and try to build the ultimate team here. So it is that kind of fun here. And again, another way to get in on action that's interactive with people you know that love football. Locked On Fantasy Football listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's all caps in the game store within the Ultimate GM game. That's Locked On in all caps. Make sure you check it out today to get that free boost to your franchise. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores, whether it's Google Play or Apple. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On Stake of the Day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's continue the show here, looking at the running backs we want to target. Tyler Algier, if we were skeptical last week, going into this tough matchup against the Ravens, guess what happened? He ran pretty well. He caught passes, so he's showing that he can be a complete back here. So Cordero Patterson, probably his last run here as the Falcons' top back. Really, Algier is probably past him at this point. So really impressed by the kid from BYU. Not hitting a wall late in the season, looking pretty good here. They get the Cardinals this week at home. So a good matchup for sure there for Algier. And then they get the Buccaneers in the final game. The Buccaneers' run defense more vulnerable than we think. So Algier should be involved. What a good year for him at the end for the Falcons rookie. So big things again coming for him probably in 2023. Zach Moss did get the volume. It wasn't all that effective against the Chargers for the Colts, but he was the lead back while they were in the game. The Giants' run defense, the Colts matchup this week, is very weak, so that really helps Moss there to have some success. Maybe the game script won't get away from the Colts with the Giants and not being a blowout team. So looking at that, Zach Moss and looking at him and Deion Jackson, last call for them to get a piece of them. So don't be too discouraged with the limitations. Moss just trying to grind out rushing yards. Jackson not involved as much as we wanted in the past game, even with the negative game script. So again, I think they'll have some better success here in this matchup against the Giants, and hopefully Nick Foles can play a little better, not turn over the ball, and give these guys better opportunities to be productive. Khalil Herbert is definitely involved there with David Montgomery. They'll probably get him a little bit extra involved coming back from the hip injury that he had. So Montgomery and Herbert, they like as a 1-2 punch. You figure that that's what the Bears want to do against the Lions. The Lions are still vulnerable against the run. Keep in mind, last week, Lions got destroyed by the combination of Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. So the Bears are going to lick their chops and try to get that recreated here along with Justin Fields running. So Herbert should trickle down and play off that, maybe get a little burst, have a shot at a touchdown. So maybe a flex play this week for Khalil Herbert against the Lions. Looking at Gus Edwards, the Gus bus is back. He led the Ravens in rushing yards, and he could be involved quite a bit with J.K. Dobbins as they grind games away. We'll see if Lamar Jackson can return. That would help everything in this offense wake up. So Lamar definitely is being missed right now. Tyler Huntley's just not the plug and play like everyone said. Defense is still carrying the Ravens at this point. So looking at Gus Edwards, he still has some good value here in this offense. Chuba Hubbard, I think this is probably the last call for him. Dr. Foreman has been the flashy guy leading the backfield. He had that history with Derrick Henry and producing for the Titans last year, but Chuba Hubbard has been just as involved. This is the Panthers offense. These two guys pretty much, and DJ Moore, there's not a lot there. So good spot here for the Panthers. They got to run on the Buccaneers quite a bit, and Foreman, we know, run off of the Buccaneers. Hubbard should be involved because there's a negative game script. We also have Royce Freeman. It's not great, but he's getting the volume here for the Texans. It's not a bad matchup this week at home against the Jaguars if they can stand the game a little bit. Speaking of the Jaguars, I like them this week on the road. Their defense can make some plays here. We know they have enough guys back there to do so, including Rashawn Jenkins, who won the game a couple weeks ago against the Cowboys. They get Jeff Driscoll / Davis Mills in Houston. The Jaguars feeling momentum. They want to keep it up here going into the final week to take care of the Titans and win the AFC South there. Commanders, Deshaun Watson, this Browns offense struggling a little bit. They are playing at home, so the Commanders playing better defense. We saw them contain the 49ers for at least a half there. The Browns are also a consideration here on the other side of this. We don't know what the quarterback situation is. Taylor Heinicke and Carson Wentz. It could be Tyler Heinicke. It could be Tyler someone. It could be anyone starting a quarterback for the Commanders. No, probably going to be Carson Wentz on this one as he relieved Heinicke. There's a chance Heinicke could come back, but neither quarterback inspires that they're going to protect the ball. So Browns a little bit appealing this week. Chargers are hot. They came through on Monday night. You can play them against the Rams for sure. We'll see what happens with Chargers if they're careful with their players. So monitor that here for this game. But definitely the Chargers defense coming through at the right time. The Rams offense, I know they exploded against the Broncos, and that was a Rams-like defense in a way with Ejiro Evero. So Brandon Staley, that knowledge might help a little bit with Sean McVay, but the Chargers still playing pretty well with their pass rush. Their pass defense much tougher with their corners. Looking at the Patriots, again, if it's Teddy Bridgewater or Tua Tagovailoa, they're struggling a little bit with the turnovers here. Patriots got the pick six from Joe Burrow to get back in the game, as well as another interception there in the red zone. So they're still making plays, even when it looks like they're not. They were down 22-0 in that game, but they really used their defense to come back into it. Dolphins, you can also look at Mac Jones making some mistakes here. It could be a volume pass game for Jones where he's going to have to drop back, put himself in harm's way for sacks and interceptions. So if you want to go in that direction in that game, you can. Jets, Geno Smith and that offense really struggled with that Tyler Lockett. He was the guy that he's the route winner and it can get open underneath when DK Metcalf is covered. So if Tyler Lockett misses a game, you can look at the Jets because they're actually favored in that game in Seattle as well in the low-scoring affair. Looking at the Cardinals, if they get some of their guys back, it is potentially the last run here for J.J. Watt. He announced that on Twitter, so may want to get revved up here against the rookie quarterback Desmond Ridder on the road. On the flip side of that, if Falcons get Trace McSorley at home, that's another good play here. So a few streaming defenses definitely on the radar here for Week 17 to help your teams if you're hurting there, because it's been a roller coaster with those plays as well this season. All right, we do have to get into our wide receivers and tight ends here for our waiver wire recommendations on Pickup Tuesday. We'll do that in our final segment. Before we do that, we're excited that PrizePicks still has a couple more weeks here in the regular season because really PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. It's a game that we'd love to be attached to here at Locked On Fantasy Football. We'll give you the PrizePicks picks of the week. We'll do that again for the last 2 weeks here on Friday, and then we'll get into it for the playoffs as well. So a lot of excitement there. It's very easy to get in. It's a format that anyone can join. You can make picks in 30 seconds or less. Here, it's very easy. I mean, 60 seconds less, whatever. It's going to take you less than a minute to get going here with your picks. And if you listen to us, you'll have it even faster here with some players that you can look at. Pick 2 to 6 players, and they will go score more or less than the price projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. It's no competing against other people, just you versus projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's not just the NFL, but we have NBA, NHL, college football bowl season, college basketball, a lot of good stuff here at this time of year. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. I can do it in 30. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in 30 states and Canada, more than that. So exciting to really get in on the game, a new way to play daily fantasy sports. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100 If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. And trust us, it's a lot of fun. Get it on PrizePicks here for the rest of the season. All right, it is time to close the show looking at our wide receiver and tight end recommendations. Greg Dortch is back in the mix for the Cardinals. We know Rondell Moore is on IR. It's a compressed passing game with either Colt McCoy or Trace McSorley filling in for Kyler Rice. So the outfield shots have been curbed there for one Marquise Hollywood Brown. You don't have DeAndre Hopkins feeling as much. Dortch is the easy guy, the extended handoff guy. We saw him also get involved in the running game, kind of as a backup guy. So they pretty much plugged and played him as what you might have seen from Rondell Moore at this stage. They're very similar. It's really weird. It's like very linear with the Cardinals. It's like we're not going to use Greg Dortch unless Rondell Moore's hurt. Then we're going to use Dortch like we would Moore. It's very weird, but that's what they do here with Cliff Kingsbury. So Dortch, high volume, big game, PPR gold there with what he did against the Buccaneers and also getting rushing attempts. So Dortch definitely is in play. It's a great matchup this week against the Falcons. The 49ers have been burned a little in the slot by similar players. We saw Curtis Samuel do it last week, so he would be the matchup for them in the week 18, I should say. 17, good matchup here against the Falcons on the road. Jahan Dotson really feeling it, and this quarterback change, whether it's Taylor Heinicke or Carson Wentz, he's going to be the guy least affected, I think. I think Heinicke really does help Terry McLaurin, while Wentz, I think, really helps Curtis Samuel. Jahan Dotson is produced with both quarterbacks here. So Dotson is the quarterback-proof rookie. I think he's their true number one. Is going to emerge next year. McLaurin will be a co-number one here. McLaurin is going to the Pro Bowl. Very good season for him. But Dotson, I think, is a better complete receiver and the big playmaker, as well as red zone threat. So look at Dotson this week. He gets the Browns. The Browns secondary hasn't been all bad, especially against secondary receivers, which Dotson still will be perceived as behind McLaurin. So Dotson is a very good play here. And then you look in the finale there, we've got some opportunities there for Dotson to play well down the stretches. The Commanders are still trying to lock down that NFC wildcard berth at number 7. Romeo Doubs, we'll see. The Christian Watson hip injury definitely concerning from the Dolphins game. He's considered day-to-day for this game against the Vikings. It's a great matchup. If Doubs can get in there, he'll be starting right there with Al Lazard in primary roles this week. So love what you can get from Doubs. And again, watch the Watson status here, but it seems like when Doubs was hurt, Watson went off. When Watson was hurt, banged up, still getting his feet wet early in the season, Doubs was the guy. So not be surprised if he makes a big play and is the guy that gets decent volume against the Packers should Watson sit. Richie James, you can look at him and Isaiah Hodgins. They are seemingly now settled as the Giants' best two receivers for Daniel Jones. At one point, it was Darius Slayton in the mix, but these two guys, James working the short intermediate routes, working slot, Isaiah Hodgins making some plays on the outside. These two seem to be the best options here. The Giants do get a matchup against the Colts at home. The Colts pass defense suddenly struggling against receivers. We saw the numbers put up by Keenan Allen and Mike Williams there. No touchdowns, but still good yardage and catch totals that they put up on the Colts defense here on Monday night in week 16. Hunter Renfrow did come through the touchdown. He didn't do all that much else there against the Steelers, but he did get open, schemed open a little bit, and you do get the 49ers this weekend. We talked about the 49ers, a little bit vulnerable in the slot, not totally just a pushover there, but that's where you'd want to work on them. So Renfrow could see some action here as Devontae Adams maybe bottled up again in that matchup against San Francisco. All right, tight ends, a very similar named player. We'll have to watch the hamstring injury that hurt him late in that game against the Rams. Greg Dortch, if he's out there, it's a good matchup against the Chiefs, working with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton this week, so we'll watch that. Tyler Conklin, I know there's a presence of C.J. Uzomah, who scored 2 touchdowns here of late, but Tyler Conklin looks like the tight end of choice here, so that's great. That Seahawks cheat code matchup, we saw it come through for Travis Kelce last week. Conklin is not Kelce, but he can still put up the numbers. That's how vulnerable the Seahawks are against the tight end. Juwan Johnson, there you can look at him against the Eagles. We did have the touchdown streak to kind of cool off there, but Johnson can still get it done down better conditions, hopefully, in Philadelphia. Noah Fant is continuing his hot streak. he was playing hurt last week. He found a way in the end zone, didn't do all that much otherwise, but you'll take touchdowns pretty much. It's at 6 points here at tight end, so you really like that with Noah Fant here. And the matchup against the Jets is pretty good as they were destroyed by Evan Ingram and the Jaguars last week. And Cade Otton should get a little bit more run. They're a little bit disappointed in Mike Evans, not seeing as much return from Julio Jones with the injury as well. So Cade Otton, a decent matchup for sure against the Panthers this week. Panthers secondary, however, probably going to be without J.C. Horn. They had to go re-sign Josh Norman. Remember, he's back in league because J.C. Horn is having wrist surgery, so he's going to miss one game. So that opens things up on the outside potentially for Mike Evans and Russell Gage. But when you look at it here, that's a situation where, again, Gage, Otton, these guys may get a little bit more run if Evans is struggling there. And they have used Leonard Fournette quite a bit, but they need to expand a little bit with their short intermediate game. And Otton can do that here for Tom Brady in this matchup against the Panthers this week. And they close against the Falcons. So good spot there for Dortch if they can deploy the rookie a little bit better. Or I should say, Otton. Good spot for Dortch as well the last 2 weeks. But Dortch to Otton is where we went here with our wide receivers and tight end recommendations of the week. So good stuff here all around that can still help our teams. We're not going crazy, but there's a few tweaks. Maybe you're looking for wide receiver 3 or flex. Maybe you're looking for a new quarterback to stream. They're all available to you this week, as well as those defenses that we're rotating in and out of our lineups each and every week. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Now makes Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else who are local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in your waiver wire pickups, and we'll start breaking down our matchups there for Week 17 with quarterbacks and running backs on tomorrow's show.